When I was asked to share about an interruption in my life and how God unexpectedly showed up, a lot of thoughts came rushing in, and one in particular kept coming back. And after I sat and thought about it for a minute, definitely saw it as really the catalyst in my life of transitioning from one to another. And I'll share about that here in a minute. But to give you a little background and context on my life prior to this event, grew up in the church, knew about God. Even from hearing from my mom and others and somewhat of my memory, believed to have a relationship with Christ as a youth. But in majority of my high school years and all of my college age years, I spent running from the Lord, denying he ever existed, living and doing what I wanted and pleased. Throughout this whole time, definitely never had an inner peace, was always convicted about it, but sought ways to drown that thought, to numb myself through the existence of alcohol, particularly women, a little bit of drug use, and some adventures to go along the way. Forgive me here. But towards the end of this run, and it was about a decade long, I began to realize and see and hear the unrest on the inside, and knew I didn't like the way and the direction my life was going. But I wasn't fully ready to commit and surrender it. And so I tried for a little while to do it myself. And so it turned into moments of success where I would resist and hold off on certain things for certain periods of time. But eventually I always ended up at the same spot. And I would always fail, and I would always have that same conviction, that same void in my life return. So after graduating college and undergrad, I came to, and I had been preparing this whole time to go into physical therapy and getting ready to apply to grad school, and been in a broken relationship for 6 years with this girl from high school, and my life just hit crossroads in all areas. And I no longer had an interest in physical therapy. The relationship had ended altogether for good, and here I was not knowing where to go. So I did like probably most of you would do, is I gathered up a group of friends, and we mapped out a bicycle ride from San Francisco to Cabo, Mexico. And I'd given everything away, and I had no expectation of returning home. I thought I would start over in Mexico and take it from there. And so I got down there and discovered, after a 6-week journey down there in Cabo, and discovered it was a little more difficult for an American to get a job and work. And I was out of time and out of money, so I decided to pack up and head home to work, stay with my parents and work and save up for the next adventure, which was to head up with a friend on the bicycle ride to Seattle, Washington, where we were going to get on a fishing boat, make some quick cash. And also to add to that, while I was in Cabo, I had met a girl, and she happened to be from a small town just out Seattle. So here I was thinking, this is no coincidence. I'm already going to Seattle to meet this girl. Things are taking a turn for the better. Things are going to work out here. And so I was home working, had just saved enough for a plane ticket to get the phone call. We got to be up. The boat's coming in 2 days, and we got to hurry up there. So I take a bag full of rags for clothes that I plan on throwing away, and I have no more than $10 to my name. And we hustle up there, and we're staying with some friends of a friend on their couches. Only got to be there for 2 days. And then we get on the boat, and all of our needs are met at that point. Well, interruptions continued, and God had other plans. And so we sat, and when we get up there, the first day we discovered the boat was not meeting its quota, and so it was not coming into port to pick us up as we expected. So we waited. Day by day, we're looking, waiting for that phone call to let us know the boat was in and we could jump in. Well, 2 days turned into 3 weeks. And during that time, I believe that God allowed that for me to really start looking and asking some serious questions of myself of who I was, what direction I was going, and who I really wanted to be. And for some odd reason, I had packed in that bag of clothes the Bible that my mom and dad gave me on high school graduation. That had it cracked open or spent much time in since, and began to read. At the same time, I had reached out to a man who I always viewed as a man of God, but through some emails we exchanged, I expressed my turmoil and what was going on, and he responded with some words of encouragement, and he sent me his copy of his newly published book, Perfectly Positioned. And I received it while I was up there and ate it up in a day or two and just began to process it all. And it really was the turning point. And so after 3 weeks, I was out of time and out of money again and decided I was headed home. Even though empty in the pocket, my life had changed in its trajectory. So I landed home and met up with Francis Sanfuso and Susie, my aunt and uncle, and they took me out to lunch and we caught up. And at the end of the meeting, they had led me in a prayer, and I received Christ in the backseat of their car in a parking space just outside this building. Yes. Now, I'd love to end the story that it all dramatically changed at that moment and it happened overnight, but that just wasn't the script I believe God had written for me. It was a slow and a process. And so within that 2 years, shortly within 2 years, things dramatically began to change. And I was introduced to my now beautiful and amazing wife, Christy. He introduced us to. We began having children quickly and unexpectedly. 4 and 5 years to be exact. And things really turned, and both of us coming out of a similar lifestyle began to walk this fully surrendered, committed life. But I think the key that I walked away and really what he provided for me was a few things. One was I recognized what held me back. And I don't think this is uncommon, but I was really able to identify it. And it was fear. There was fear of really 3 things in my life that I knew I was living the wrong way. And I knew the right way, but I wasn't ready to step in. It was fear that hindered me that whole time. The first one was fear of man. See, I had this reputation that I cared about. And I cared more about what others thought of me than who I was really created to be. And that hindered me for a long time. And the fear of man also because I knew it was going to cost me every friendship that I ever had. See, I didn't walk with the crowd that would ever go with me or that ever had any interest in that lifestyle. So I knew I was going to be alone for a while. Then it was the fear of that relationship with that girl that I had for 6 years started my sophomore year. Again, it was broken all through college. But I knew it was going to end as soon as I decided to follow Christ. She was going to be gone. And then the third fear was social life. What in the world is going to be fun once I surrender my life? I know and I laugh at it now, but it was a serious fear, and it was a serious, all of my interactions, all my leisure time was tied up and intertwined with alcohol and women. And so what would that look like? And that fear hindered me for so long. And so I learned that walking away. And what I experienced too after that, and I'll wrap it up with this because I know I've extended my 7 minutes, sorry, Brandon, was I really discovered the peace that comes and that I'd really been missing. It was that void in my life when I was running from him that I never had. It was never going to be filled for any significant period. But as soon as I genuinely started following him, all of a sudden I woke up with this peace of knowing who I was and there was a greater purpose to this life. And that I'm thankful for. And I believe as you were singing the song of freedom, it goes hand in hand and they coincide with one another. The peace and the freedom is really priceless that you gain when you genuinely make a decision to follow him and stop bowing to fear. Thank you.